This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, it's great to be back in the chair after a few days off. Jesperson here with John Hicks.
Ooh.
Did you actually heed your own advice and take some time to yourself and sleep in and not do anything? Or were you out pulling dandelions out of the lawn and finding ways to keep busy every single day we were away last week?
No, I actually took the boss's orders this time.
Yeah,
I took Monday to Friday off.
Oh,
I did a wedding on Saturday. I filled in for my buddy DJ Alizé at the Stingers game. Big win last night. Stingers first place in the league right now. They're having a great time. So yeah, a little work on the weekend, but I did take that 5 days to decompress as you ordered.
I'm very proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you. We had we're going to be talking to Charles Adler in just a second. And obviously a ton to catch up on. Election results in France that a lot of people are talking about, but I don't really know much about it except for the left is really happy and the right's not in
it's
France.
making news.
So we'll see what's going on there. The UK has another new prime minister, so it's third in 2 years, in less than 2 years. We always wonder what that means for Canada. Plus Canada being called to the carpet on NATO spending. Greece introducing, have you seen this? The 6-day work week.
We got to talk about
in
this.
Greece. I'm curious. Some people are saying this is a great opportunity for workers.
I heard that and I was like, oh, if this is 4 days a week or 4 hours a week or a day for a full week.
Yeah.
For 6 days, great. But I hear that it's still 8 hours a day, 6 days a week.
And they're increasing the maximum hours that you can work in a day, that employers can require you to work in a day. So some union reps are calling it barbaric
slavery.
But I'm curious. I mean, Greece is trying to address a skilled worker shortage. So is probably every other country on planet Earth.
Yeah, they're trying to climb back.
The Greek economy has been somewhat fragile over the last 20 years or so as well. So it's kind of interesting to see what's going on there. We have Jason Leslie joining us with his eye on Alberta business. Jason with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. And I want to pick his brain on this too. I'm curious to see when something happens in another country, you go, might this work in Canada? What might Canadian workers think? And also for that matter, they're saying as part of this legislation, the workers will have a choice, but I don't know if you really have a choice. It reminds me, Office Space, where the guy's coming in, he's like, yeah, and I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, okay?
Yeah.
Well,
everyone else is going to be here. If you want to come and make extra money and perhaps keep your job, go ahead.
And perhaps keep your job. Yeah, that's the rub there. So we'll get to that. Plus an amazing positive reflection submitted by Alexandra. We're grateful for that, courtesy of our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. All of that coming up on this episode of Real Talk. Plus, I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. I spent a few days last week down in Calgary hosting the EO. It's called EO1 Canada. It's entrepreneurs organization, and this theme was True Grit.
Yeah.
And so Calgary hosted entrepreneurs from across the country and for that matter internationally. Just as the Calgary Stampede was launching. So vibes were high no matter what. But a lot of talk about business and entrepreneurs and how people are kicking ass and how people are breaking barriers and getting past some of the hurdles in their way. And so it just felt like a good time to check in with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce too. They have that Provincial Priorities survey. Remember we talked to Shauna Feth about that, their CEO, last time she was on. And we were putting it out to you Real Talkers to chime in on that. Hundreds of you did. And business owners, operators, executives from across the province, and some really interesting insights into where people's confidence is at in Alberta in particular, in the economy, the business landscape. So we always love to check in. That's all coming up in this episode, which is presented by our friends at Alberta's top online real estate school. Of course, that's Relo, where better real estate training starts. You can find them online at relo.ca. If you're considering a career in real estate, you love the idea of working for yourself, you love the idea of unlimited earning potential, and you could really use a head start in getting started, preparing for your exam, getting your license, and then, of course, getting those first few feet forward in launching your career. Nobody does it better than Relo. You can invest in your own success, and they're with you every step of the way. Don't forget, when you're signing up at relo.ca, the promo code Ryan100, all one word, Ryan100, is going to knock $100 off the Alberta Commercial Real Estate Bundle and the Alberta Residential Real Estate Bundle. So save yourself a couple of $100 if you're going to do the whole shebang. That's Ryan100 at relo.ca.
How is it down there with the the big show in Calgary.
Oh, the greatest outdoor show on earth.
Was tap water $90 a glass?
Nobody seems to. You get the sense that they kind of have that figured out, the water thing. I mean, I'm just saying, you remember that the mayor of Calgary, Jody Gondek, had issued that statement saying that they had July 5th circled on the calendar as the day that everybody would be able to sort of let her buck again. But I would say, just as a visitor, it wasn't noticeable. Like there's not like signage everywhere. Nobody was sort of talking about it. So
how was the shower water pressure in your hotel?
Not too bad. But I did find myself taking quick ones.
Okay.
And then staying at my parents' house for a couple of days, because my parents were among those that had adhered to the letter of the law on asking people to kind of chill out on their water usage. So I was proud of them. You see, I was driving down their street, and you could see people that had almost impromptu rain barrels. Like people had the cleaning buckets.
Oh, really?
Mop buckets underneath their eaves troughs, underneath the downspouts and things like that. So it's people, there was evidence that people were kind of chilling out, and I didn't see anybody running sprinklers. You wonder if that'll change now. Obviously, if you're listening to this the week that we're doing this, the temperature across the province, right? I mean, there's heat waves around the world right now, but
30, 35 this
30,
week.
35 this week, so we'll see how that goes. Charles Adler, the first episode of every week, presented by Tice Automotive Consulting. And pal, it's been quite a while. It feels like forever since we last got to hang out with you. How have you been hanging out?
It's been a long time, and I don't follow orders. I don't decompress. I never chill out. Can I start with something a bit on the serious side today that's bothering me, and I think it ought to bother the conscience of every human being around the world?
Yeah, let's go.
Russia is targeting infrastructure. That's a nice word for places where people live and places that have the things that people need, like water, water purifying systems, like hospitals. 3 hospitals were hit by Russian ballistic missiles today. It was a morning drive attempt at genocide in Ukraine, 2 successful in some neighborhoods, not as in others, but 20 children were killed in a children's hospital that took fire from one of these missiles. The people in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, where this children's hospital is located, rallying, doing whatever they can, bringing food, bringing medicine, bringing everything that Ukrainians bring. Our prime minister has condemned the attack. I'm hoping that the opposition leader will do the same. I'm hoping the premier of Alberta does the same. I'm hoping that Head Nenshi does the same. I'm hoping that as many Canadian political and moral leaders speak out about this, because it is vile. And I'll only make one political statement. If anybody here is following those people who want to stroke, and I mean it, stroke, lapdog, lather the fascist leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, please remember what happened today. That is the face of fascism, and that is Putin's ugly face all over Ukraine.
Yeah, brutal. And this is, as we talk on this Monday, we're talking July 8th. This is probably the biggest story in the world right now. And it's not like people have forgotten what's happening over there. It's not that people have forgotten Russia's aggression, the war in Ukraine, but something like this, I think, serves as a wake-up call, as this has sat outside the news cycle for a while. Our attention spans are short.
Attention spans are all too short, but I just don't understand why more people. I get that it's been going on for a while. Wars last for too long, painfully, especially for those people who are on the ground. But this is not just Vladimir Putin's statement about Ukraine. This is what he would love to do to many countries. And we talked on D-Day, and we'll talk again on the anniversary of every D-Day about what our Canadian heroes did and what our allies in the United States and the United Kingdom and others did. We talk about how grateful the people of the Netherlands are for Canadian actions in liberating the Netherlands from fascism. And yet, that expression "never again" keeps hitting the wall. If we really believe in things like never again, Ukraine and what's happening there shouldn't be happening right now. The idea that the world can't stop it is balderdash.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, like dynamic wise as well. We want to sort of like take a look at a couple of different election results, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on international politics. I'm certainly not an expert in French politics. I don't know diddly squat about French politics, but in the UK, a new prime minister there as well, Sir Keir Starmer, the UK's new prime minister after a massive win, his Labour Party sweeping to power. People are going to be looking at the new British PM's top priorities, and you wonder what today's development here in Ukraine might influence when it comes to his first orders of business. There's obviously a lot of people are asking him about the UK position on Gaza right now, and obviously that's where a lot of eyes are. But this is something this kind of hits refresh on this story internationally, and in particular with this new PM that I think a lot of people don't know a lot about, to be quite honest with you.
Well, he's, there was this expression, New Labour, that was formed by Tony Blair and his adherents a number of years ago. He wanted to make sure that people understood that the new face of the Liberal Party was not a hardcore socialist face. Starmer is the same. Starmer understands what most of us understand. I mean, I'm a small C conservative, and what does that generally mean? It means that I want as many economic opportunities to go to as many people involved in free enterprise as possible. But I also believe that one of the reasons we need that to happen is so that we can have a healthy and secure social safety net. I believe in order. I don't like chaos. And I think the easiest way to prevent chaos is to make sure that the most vulnerable among us have at least a roof over their heads and some food in their bowls. And I believe in public health care and all the rest of the jazz that we call Canada. So the thing is that Starmer is very much like that. Yes, he's on the labor side of things, but Starmer wants to make sure that the economy in Britain improves. And one of the things that blew me away was his opponent, the Prime Minister of Britain, the Tory Prime Minister, Sunak, actually apologized to the people of Britain when he was handing over the reins of power. He apologized for the Tories in Britain giving very, very poor public service to the people of the United Kingdom. That doesn't happen very often. As a matter of fact, I can't remember the last time I saw a world leader apologize for his party's lack of public service to the people of his democratic country, and Sunak did that. And I think for that, he deserves a lot of respect. The new Prime Minister of Britain has spoken out against what happened in Ukraine today. I give him credit for that. There's a NATO meeting. Our prime minister's there, naturally. The president of the United States. It's in D.C. this week, NATO meeting, and I'm hoping that NATO gets as vociferous as possible about this. And just before I let go on this topic, God bless the people of Ukraine and their president Zelensky.
What do you think, Canada? You think the Prime Minister is going to get his knuckles wrapped when it comes to these NATO meetings? It's a big announcement, more defense spending by Canada, loads more spending, as a matter of fact. But Canada's still shy of that 2% number that former President Trump was talking about a lot, and it seems like Canada's getting sort of wholly criticized here, that it's just not up to snuff. And obviously, eyes of the world on organizations, bodies like NATO right now. You think Canada's reputation is legitimately at risk here in this context?
I don't think Canada's reputation is at risk. Canada has a wonderful reputation around the world for all sorts of substantive reasons. I'd love to hit the 2% mark. I think most Canadians do. I don't think there's a bigger supporter of the Canadian military than I am and my family. We owe our lives to them. And as I say, I'd love to hit the 2%. Frankly, I'd like to surpass 2%.
Have you been reading about this new Marc Garneau biography, former cabinet minister, obviously after the most recent election, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, removing the former astronaut and obviously a well-known, a long-time and well-respected minister, to say the very least. But Marc Garneau, in this new autobiography that's just coming out, former foreign affairs minister, saying that Canada has lost its standing in the world under the tenure of Prime Minister Trudeau, calls him an ill-prepared leader who prioritizes politics, makes big pronouncements without any follow-through. Taken from his autobiography titled A Most Extraordinary Ride, Space Politics and the Pursuit of a Canadian Dream, Marc Garneau writes, I believe Justin Trudeau has overestimated Canada's impact abroad, basically saying that Canada's reputation internationally is suffering under the Prime Minister, says that he and Trudeau had very little in common outside of their liberal values and that they were not close. Well, that is abundantly clear now. Would you agree with them?
Well, Marc Garneau had a dream, and his dream was to become Prime Minister of Canada. It never happened. I don't know what else I can say beyond that. He's had a chip on his shoulder about that. I thank Marc Garneau for his service. Nobody is going to lose out on book sales by attacking Trudeau. Everybody seems to do it. We'll see what the ultimate ballot question is for most people in the coming months. I keep seeing polls, Abacus, which is one of the most credible pollsters in recent months. Poilievre's numbers, the number that is incredibly important when it comes to an actual general election, not by-elections and not talk shows and all the rest of it, but actual general elections. The number that is absolutely critical is who do you favor as Prime Minister at the moment. Poilievre is still slightly ahead of Trudeau, but his numbers on that question, who do you favor as Prime Minister, Poilievre's numbers are dropping while Trudeau's are escalating. And we'll see what this response to fascism around the world, we'll see how that transpires. There's no doubt in my mind that Trudeau will say during his election campaign, and I do believe that he's running, I do believe that he'll make the point that there is a worldwide trend that has to be stopped. It was stopped in Britain a few days ago. It was stopped. Vive la France! It was stopped. Every day that fascism gets a pounding is a great day for humanity. It was stopped in France over the weekend, and I have no idea how much the Prime Minister will tie himself to the movement to stop fascism. Some people warn him not to, jump the shark on it, not to, put Poilievre in the same boat as Vladimir Putin and Marine Le Pen and some others. I doubt that he would go that far, but I think people in this country do understand that elections have consequences.
Yeah. I think it would be a mistake to start comparing Pierre Poilievre to Vladimir Putin for obvious reasons. I just think, like we've talked about this before, even just from a campaign strategy, you come across as Chicken Little, and I just don't think it's a good move. Interesting. I was down in Calgary, as mentioned, for opening weekend, kickoff weekend of the Calgary Stampede, and you throw a rock and you're going to hit a Stampede party for sure, and they're full of the movers and the shakers, politically, business, and otherwise. And I was in a pretty prominent gathering, and of course was running into NDP and conservative MLAs, Alberta, provincial politicians. Sure. Ran into some federal conservative politicians and some federal ministers, liberal ministers. Among them, Anita Anand, who came up and said hello. She was on the show a couple of months ago, and Randy Boissonneau. And he came up to me, let me know with a smirk on his face that he very much enjoyed your and my riffing on the other Randy. I think
we had a lot of fun with that.
Johnny, he wanted us to know that he had seen it, that he and his staff had seen our laughter on the other Randy. But he said, "Hey, Jespo," he said, "I'm just curious to know, will you and Adler be updating this story?" And I said, "Well, what's the update on the story?" It was the day of. I hadn't seen it. I don't know if you saw this. But the employment minister, Randy Boissonneau, MP out of Edmonton Centre, has been cleared in a preliminary ethics probe of his business dealings. Canada's ethics commissioner, Conrad von Finkenstein, who, by the way, has one of the best names in politics.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Although I guess I should not in politics, but you know what I'm saying.
He wears a monocle.
Yeah, no, if I were to change my name, and I would never dishonor my father's name, obviously. So
yes.
This is all. But if ever I had to have a different name, it would be Charles von Finkenstein.
He must wear a cape. He must.
And have a walking cane. Yeah. We're just going to dig ourselves deeper and deeper on this one. But pretty interesting. Writes the ethics commissioner. It was a June 25th letter, by the way, but this is just reported a few days ago. I no longer have concerns, says the federal ethics commissioner, that Mr. Boissonneau may have contravened his obligations under the Act. That's the Conflict of Interest Act, of course, and says, I will be taking no further action at this time. People may remember Randy Boissonneau, his time outside of politics, established a company. That company was doing business providing PPE on government contracts, and there was a guy named Randy in a bunch of text messages. And Michael Cooper, Boissonneau's political opponent, the two just absolutely cannot stand each other. Cooper, the Conservative MP out of St. Albert, on it like a dog on a bone. And of course, you and I had talked about this, but I said to Minister Boissonneau, I said, obviously we're going to follow up, and obviously we'll touch on it. I thought it was, to be honest with you, quite interesting that this preliminary investigation, ethics commissioner says we're done here, nothing to see here. So, fair is fair, and there's the update on that story. You surprised at all?
Not really. Look, if there was only one lawyer, if I needed a lawyer and there was only one lawyer in Canada available to me, and his name was Michael Cooper, I would be representing myself. And as far as Randy Boissonneau is concerned, he's one of the most likable people on earth. I don't pretend to understand all of the entrails of the investigation, but I respect the ethics commissioner, not just because his name is von Finkenstein, the greatest name on earth, but I respect his integrity, and I'm glad that Randy Boissonneau's got cleared, and I wish him all.
Well, I don't know if you're glad that Randy Boissonneau got cleared. You don't have a horse in the race, do you? I mean, it is what it is.
No, but I mean, listen, when a person has an ethical scar, when he's suffering in that kind of way, and he gets cleared, I think that's a good day. So as a human being, as a fellow Canadian, and as a guy who likes Randy Boissonneau, I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
But who is the other Randy then? There was another Randy?
This is the thing.
That's
there's in my mind, and I've been reading reporting on this, and I still can't figure out what the hell is going on with this story.
If he's cleared, there must be another Randy, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a great Randy a number of years ago who was some sort of illusionist and a person who went after crackpots? I think his name was Randy, the great Randy, or something like that. I interviewed him in a different century, so I'm not up to speed.
Yeah, the James Randi, the supernatural,
yeah.
The amazing Randy.
That's got the amazing Randy.
What a pull!
I interviewed the amazing Randy a very, very long time ago. He was a formidable fellow. I don't think he's still around, but maybe his ghost is on that text.
It says here, the amazing James Randi uses his knowledge, may he rest in peace, used his knowledge of magic to expose the supernatural. A Canadian stage musician, author, and scientific skeptic who extensively challenged paranormal and pseudoscientific claims. The co-founder of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. Wow. Never heard of this fella. I think I found my next rabbit hole.
Yeah.
This is great.
Do some homework on him, get some video. He was, the amazing, sometimes people use words and it's hyperbolic. In his case, it wasn't. He really was the amazing Randy.
Hey, what is going on in your home city of Winnipeg? You wrote about this in your column just this weekend at winnipegfreepress.com is where people can read your work. Pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, the name Asper in Winnipeg is like as golden as it gets, correct? The Aspers are
yes.
when the Aspers speak, everybody listens.
Well, sure. I mean, Izzy Asper, great patriarch, businessman, and of course, philanthropist. There's just so much in Winnipeg that would never have been built without him. Edmonton has its philanthropist. Winnipeg has its, and the number one philanthropist of all time in our community is the Asper. Now, his daughter Gail is a philanthropist as well. She's in charge of the Asper Foundation. They give away a lot of money every year to a lot of people. And Gail Asper is not particularly religious, and as you know, I'm not particularly religious either. But this idea that a few years ago, I'll just call it the politically correct crowd, decided that the Ten Commandments, a monument of the Ten Commandments, did not belong in Assiniboine Park, which is Manitoba's most beautiful park, just a few minutes from where I'm privileged to live. And they took the Ten Commandments out. Now, they didn't trash them, but they hid them. Okay, they're now concealed from the public. And Gail Asper had the temerity to call for Winnipeg City Council to put the monument of the Ten Commandments back in the park for all to see. And it's not about religion. Yes, all three of the world's great religions Christianity, Judaism, Islam is absolutely reverential toward the Ten Commandments. It's part of the code. Ten Commandments have the controversial commandments like respect your mom, respect your dad, honor them. What's the one?
Don't
Ryan,
steal,
about
don't
the
kill.
Truth? What's the thou shalt? What is it? The false witness. Thou shalt
not bear false witness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Ten Commandments wants us to honor our parents, our heritage, and the truth. And some people find that controversial. Let me say something about that. There are people who say that if you honor the Christian or Jewish or Muslim religions in any kind of visible way, that somehow you're treading on vulnerable people, on minorities that have been persecuted. I just want to say this. The only countries that have established human rights law that's worth anything in this world are countries with cultures that were, for most of history, Judeo-Christian. And of course, that includes our own country. And so if marginalized people in any spot on this earth are getting protection, they're getting protection from human rights laws, which are directly related to Judeo-Christian cultures, which are directly related to the code in the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments should not offend anyone. The Ten Commandments, in fact, should feel as a protection, okay? The best piece of protection that minorities have in this world is the culture of those people who follow the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is not your enemy, it is your friend. And for those people who engage in absolutely mindless and groundless political correctness, attacking anyone because they're white or because they're Christian or because they're part of some country that's been accused of colonialism. I get all the politics of that. That's fine. You're free to express all of that. But I'm sorry. Shaming the Ten Commandments, shame on you.
Yeah, but what do you think if you were to poll if you were to poll Winnipeggers, if you were to poll like 1,000 or 1,500 or 5,000 of them, what percentage of Winnipeggers polled do you think would support returning the Ten Commandments to the park? You think it
90.
would be, no, come on, 90%?
I write columns all the time. It's been one of the best received columns that I've had, and the people writing me are not religious zealots. They're just average Winnipeggers. And they feel it's about time that somebody pushed back, because this isn't about the Ten Commandments exclusively, obviously. This is about the idea that anything that is part of the culture, which I now will call Canadian culture, that anything that involves our heritage and our history is toxic, and it needs to be removed. It needs to be torn down. I'm tired of it.
In our live chat on YouTube, Gentleman Jim says separation of church and state is paramount and is a line which cannot be crossed. Ben Demon Hunter says, preach it, Charles. He agrees with you. I'm pretty sure that I disagree with you, Chuck, and this is not in any way intended to offend anybody that chooses to. I mean, like, obviously, many of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill, we have that in the Canadian Criminal Code as well. Like, there are laws of the land, so to speak, regardless of what inspired them or when they were inspired or where you can find similar or the exact same commandments, so to speak, in religious literature or in the books that are holy books to people of whichever faith. But I don't know. I mean, like, I think if you hear, for example, of people reciting the Lord's Prayer in schools, and that's become a thing where I don't know if there's any public school in the country. Maybe there is. Maybe a real talker that hears this somewhere across Canada. If your kids, or maybe you're a teacher, maybe they recite the Lord's Prayer in your school at a public school, you can let us know. I think a private school, a religious or a faith-based school, obviously we're talking apples and oranges here. Obviously, this Ten Commandments art installation, this carving, it would be a non-issue if it were on the grounds of a church-owned property, if it were on the grounds of some park that perhaps the land had been donated by a religious organization or a philanthropist who had a certain directive or a mandate around that. But Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know as much about Winnipeg as you, but I do know that I would be blown away if 90% of people wanted to see the Ten Commandments. What Johnny on the spot? This is going to be a new feature, a new segment where we take a hot potato, we throw it over at Johnny on the spot. What do you think on this one? The 10 Commandments in a public park, yay or nay?
I think this goes local. Like I think it depends on the community that's around it. If that's the type of community, it'd be the same if it was a mosque or something like that. It depends on the community. But I don't know about 90% of people in Winnipeg. But I mean, if the community wants it and that's what is being fostered in and around the community and the people who live there, I don't think there's a huge problem with it. I mean, if it was outside Edmonton City Hall, then it's a different story. But
I don't know. I mean, I guess like Gail Asper obviously, wields a heavy hammer, right, Chuck? Too. Like that's a name that goes a long way, in particular in Manitoba.
Ryan, you don't have to be religious. I mean, I know you've got a religious background, and my grandparents were very religious. Okay, but you don't have to be religious to simply ask yourself this question. These laws that you talk about, whether it's about murder, whether it's about theft, whether it's about abuse, it's worth asking the question every now and then, because we always talk about the root causes of crime and the root causes of violence and the root causes of law. Well, where are the roots of these laws that protect all of us, that civilize us? And if you do an investigation of where the roots are in, I have to say it, the Ten Commandments. I mean, it goes a long way back. And rather than seeing it as religion, I know that you can't stigmatize anything anymore in this world except religion and the people who are religious. I mean, I understand that, and I inveigh against it all the time. But here's the deal. If you want to examine what the root cause of what the root cause of these laws are that protect us, the roots of those laws are in our heritages, our cultures, and they are intimately connected to the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, I get the sentiment, but I mean, it's just morality. All religions are like that. So I mean, you don't need the commandments to tell you not to murder, right? I mean,
let me see. So hop in. The chat is humming right now. Christopher says, speaking as a self-described atheist, there's a strong case to be made that the concept of human rights as we know them wouldn't exist without the Judeo-Christian tradition. So Christopher obviously sees eye to eye with Adler here. Others are saying, well, listen, if you're going to have this, like David says, religious representation should be a personal thing. Having large monuments that focus on one religious view alienates those who don't follow that religion, not necessarily the message it's projecting.
I said the Abrahamic faith.
And you're
Judaism,
right. You're right, Chuck.
Christianity and Muslim.
For sure.
Islam.
100%. Yeah. Wally says if you put up the Ten Commandments, you should also feature, Hinduism, Buddhism, indigenous prayer as well. Jillian says, I just want to say, says Jillian, this is why I love Quebec and France's actual efforts for real secularism. No religious symbols in government positions. They even took down the crucifix in the Quebec Parliament. That from Jillian, who, we happen to know Jillian. She chimes in a lot. She's appeared on the show and originally from Quebec, now living in Alberta. So, yeah, I don't know. The audience is split on this one. I mean, to be honest with you, I guess I can make the argument either way, but I think generally speaking, returning something that's been removed is a big statement no matter what. And then you just wonder, what message is it sending? Is this the biggest issue in Canada right now? Absolutely not. But I bet you this is the one that people would have the strongest opinions on.
Absolutely, because it's not about religion, it's about morality. It's about right and wrong. And in a world where everything that we have grown up to believe is right is now turned on its head, we're supposed to challenge absolutely everything we've believed in. For God's sakes, if you just look at this as a moral code as opposed to fundamentalist religion, which it isn't. This isn't about proselytizing. This isn't about trying to convert people. This is simply, in my opinion, about letting people know where we come from in terms of how we feel about our fellow human beings. So I'll stand up for the Ten Commandments every day.
All right. I love this from Lightning Rod. What a great handle. Lightning Rod in our chat says, I can't describe just how much I appreciate this channel, Real Talk, and being able to watch a talk show online with an open chat populated by Canadians. I love that, Lightning Rod. That's some fantastic feedback. Before we let you go, we're going to be talking business in a second with Jason Leslie. He's got his eye on Alberta business with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. You've seen this story out of Greece, obviously, introducing that nation is a 6-day work week. It's certainly seen as controversial. Not everybody thinks it's a good thing, but it's intended, says its government, Greece's pro-business government, to boost productivity amid a shrinking population and a shortage of skilled workers. It extends the work week to 48 hours, 6 days, 48 hours. Some union spokespersons describing it as barbaric. And they've had demonstrations of thousands of people in Athens. You have a thought on this and whether or not this might be a measure to be adopted in Canada to address some of the same challenges?
Greece to me is at the cradle of civilization. I've always been pro-Greek. Everybody in my life I've known who is Greek has been absolutely wonderful to me. I'm not saying that I'm part Greek or anything like that.
You're about to pick a fight, aren't you?
No, I love the idea of Greece being pro-business once in a while, because I believe that the Greek economy should have been surging for the last 30 or 40 years, and it hasn't. And I'm not going to sit here and bash unions and bash the left and blah, blah, blah. It's too easy. I can do that in a coma. But I'm here to say that I'm really glad that the people who are running Greece are taking the economy seriously and doing something about it. Will there actually be a 48-hour work week? Will it be a 6-day work week? Will it be 48 hours, or will it be somewhat fewer than 8 hours a day spread over 6 days? I have no idea. I know that there's a serious shortage of labor in Greece, and it's one of the reasons that the economy has been stymied. I wish them good luck in whatever it is they do. I see all of these things as experiments, and I think experimenting with the idea of a 6-day work week isn't the worst thing in the world, and isn't the worst thing to happen to that country, which I will always look at as paradise on earth.
Charles Adler, presented by Tice Automotive Consulting, the first episode of every week right here exclusively on Real Talk. Thanks, pal. Good to see ya.
You bet.
TiceAutomotive.com is where you can learn more about what they're doing at Tice Automotive Consulting. I absolutely love this business model. If you're the type of person that you're in the market for a new vehicle, or maybe perhaps a gently used vehicle, but the idea of heading into a car dealership gives you the heebie-jeebies, is just something that you get a little bit nervous about. Maybe you feel like you're going to get ripped off, or maybe you don't have time. You could use somebody else advocating on your behalf. Life is already a whirlwind of meetings and tasks and notifications. Tice Automotive takes this off your plate. You let them know the type of vehicle you're looking for, the parameters you have in mind, including budget, and then they go to work. They source out the perfect vehicle for you. They participate and roll out their own inspection to make sure that you're not picking up a lemon, and they'll even deliver it with white glove service. Chris is the straw that stirs the drink over at Tice Automotive, and you can check out some of the feedback on their website. No matter what you're looking for, whatever your budget is, Chris will help you find it for a very reasonable flat fee. You can get the details at ticeautomotive.com. Our friends at Friesen Brothers want to remind you, as if you didn't already know, it is barbecue season, baby, and at 17 different locations across the province, they have you covered with Alberta's finest meats. Elevate your barbecue with the finest cuts of Alberta beef, succulent pork, tender chicken, flavorful bison. Ensure every bite is a taste sensation. Plus, you can enhance your meal with artisan breads, pastries from their bakery, crafted with care for that perfect touch of freshness. And don't even get me started on their locally sourced produce. You will find it all. You can find it online at friesen.com for the details, and in store, 17 different locations. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. And a shout out to our friends at California Closets. They were well represented at that EO One Canada conference down in Calgary with President Cameron Johnson. The chair of that organizing committee just did a bang up job. California Closets is individually owned in the province of Alberta. So you're dealing with the folks that are running the business. Those are the ones that are doing the business, and they take every single one of their projects personally. Your satisfaction guaranteed from that free consultation all the way through to the end of the installation. You can register to get started. Get the ball rolling by getting in touch with their team online at californiaclosets.ca.
90% of Greece identifies as Christian Orthodox, so I think they would be in favor of those commandments being put up anywhere.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, you look at the numbers, and it's like 85% of Americans identify. I think the last numbers I looked at, 85% of Americans say that they're Christian, but I don't know that means everybody wants the 10 Commandments out. I saw, and this from Brian, you know when you talk about, like, if you have an opinion on something like this, you're going to get emails. And Brian, I'm not putting words in your mouth when I'm saying we will get emails. We'll get a flamethrower submission, at least one for sure, to talk@ryanjesperson.com, calling me out for my anti-God, anti-faith position on this. That is not what this is. It's not an attack on the church. It's not an attack on faith. To muse or to wonder about whether or not it's appropriate to have the 10 Commandments out in a public venue, right, supported by public dollars. And so Brian here in our chat says, Jespo, sadly you missed the point. This has nothing to do with religion. You should know better. I love this. You should know better. Brian, the 10 Commandments have everything to do with religion. The 10 Commandments are the basis of the religion, right? Like Moses goes up on the mountain. It was Moses, wasn't it? That goes up on the mountain and comes back with the 10 Commandments, the 2 stone tablets, and then he sees everybody misbehaving and throws them down and smashes them. Everybody knows the story. It is literally religion. That is exactly what it is. And so the question is, does that belong in public space? And I think that this is a healthy debate to have, and I think that this is a good venue to have the debate in. But I guarantee that not everybody feels the same on this. This feels like a perfect opportunity for an unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll. So maybe we'll roll that out today and see where Real Talkers stand on religious symbolism in public spaces. It's not an attack on anybody's religion. This is just a question. You're welcome to put your 10 Commandments out on your front lawn. You're welcome to put your 10... you're welcome to... I'm just trying to light a fire under people.
Only in Alberta, baby.
Get people inspired. Yeah. But, you're obviously churches can have them out there. People can do whatever they like on private property. You're more than welcome to do whatever you like, for the most part. I don't know did you see the story out of Montreal as well? The house that was painted as the Kudu.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting one as well. Yeah. So I guess you can't do everything you want on your private property.
So I'm guessing Greece isn't going to make you work on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on
Monday to
what
Saturday
day on the calendar the Orthodox faith observes. Typically it's the first Monday of every month, but in this case, because of the Canada Day stat, it'll be the second Monday of the month, courtesy of our friends at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. We've got our eye on Alberta business as we welcome Jason Leslie to the show with the Alberta Chambers. It's nice to see your face, buddy.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about religion, but I do want to ask you, I'm curious to pick your brain on the Greek, this new legislation, the 6-day work week. I know it's kind of a developing story and everybody's just trying to get a sense of what it would mean for Greece's economy and for Greek workers. That country's got a really serious shortage of skilled labor and population numbers are dwindling there. There are some common themes in Canada, a shortage of skilled labor here. It's something we've talked to Alberta Chambers, you and CEO Shauna Feth about before. Do you have preliminary or opening or initial thoughts on a 6-day work week in Greece?
Well, I think, as you mentioned it, the story is certainly emerging. From what I see so far on this is that it's only for select industries. So it's always important to dig into the details. My understanding, and this could be verified, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I'm reading right now, it's only for certain select industries, and particularly industries that have 24-hour operating cycles. And that's not entirely uncommon to see workers in industries like that have different shift schedules and so forth. And there's a lot to potentially be said for legislation coming in and protecting those workers who do work in those industries, already working long hours, having enhanced worker protection. Now that's just a 30,000-foot, toe in the water kind of analysis on that.
Let's let everybody know as well that I'm just absolutely putting you on the spot on this one. And so, and we'll say you're not speaking on behalf of Alberta Chambers here. So this is new legislation that went into effect just this past weekend. It's optional, as they say, for workers, which, you may kind of chuckle at because not everything's optional for workers, even though it may be on the surface. But workers can put in 48 hours a week instead of the typical 40 hours. Johnny, this is interesting because this is what you touched on. This was your first question.
Yeah.
Those who opt in can choose between working an additional 2 hours a day. Okay, so you can spread it out to an additional 2 hours a day or an extra 8-hour shift. But how about this? Workers will be paid 40% extra for the additional time as well.
Okay, that's good. But a 10-hour day, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we've talked about, not seriously, but we've talked about 10-hour days, but going to a 4-day work week. And I think a lot of businesses are doing that. That's kind of more along with, if you broaden the conversation out, it's also when you talk about skill retention, worker, staff retention, keeping employees happy, a lot of people might choose an extra 2 hours a day, but 1 fewer days a week in the office or something along those lines. Not exactly what Greece is doing here, but this might be, some things are in response to economic factors. Other things are in response to what employees are looking for too.
Absolutely. I mean, this is an evolving conversation, certainly in the past couple of years, about how to keep workers happy while maintaining productivity. And a lot of businesses are having that based on their own particular needs and their own particular, workplace culture and what their employees find valuable. And those are healthy conversations to have.
Yeah, Jillian in the chat says, isn't this whole Greece situation because their economy took such a bad hit a few years back and they're still digging themselves out, says the EU bailed Greece out big time. I mean, the Greek economy was an absolute shambles. And I'm not saying it's not now. I'm not really qualified to comment on it, but I do remember. I mean, that was a huge story.
It was a big deal.
Obviously. It's great to have you here, pal. And obviously there's been a lot going on at the Alberta Chambers. I know that, it's sort of the summer months, but business doesn't slow down. Your advocacy doesn't slow down, even though politicians maybe aren't necessarily meeting, lawmakers aren't holding session, but the advocacy efforts continue. And your Provincial Priorities research is out, the 6th year that you guys have done this. We put this out to Real Talkers, an invitation to participate in this. It's kind of for people that aren't familiar with it, this is kind of a neat way to put your finger on the pulse of Alberta business, and in particular, the people that are out there taking big risks.
Absolutely, and to contribute their voice. And we just really want to express our appreciation for the Real Talk listeners who do participate in those, because this provides a really strong voice for business leaders about what their priorities are for the province, what issues are, who should resolve them, and what our opportunities are for a province going forward.
Yeah, well, I wanted to dig into some of the high-level stuff for the audience, and I will say for context, and I was telling you, I was laughing about this, down in Calgary hosting this EO1 Canada conference, and so this is hundreds of entrepreneurs from across the country, and vibes were high, and people appeared to be optimistic, and I guess that's kind of hardwired in with a lot of entrepreneurs, but your research, the Alberta Chambers research, shows that that's kind of par for the course right now. Confidence is a very positive word right now, and it's a pretty fitting word right now in the province of Alberta, in particular with business. What were people telling you?
Well, as you mentioned, this is the 6th year we've been running this. So we've been tracking business confidence, and with this particular survey, we do a full sample of the public as well. So it's a statistically relevant sample, and we've been tracking confidence since we launched Alberta Perspectives. And confidence right now, certainly around business, is the highest it's ever been since we've been tracking, which is just fantastic news. And
so the highest in 6 years.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. What do you think is how significant are the numbers when it comes to the percentage points as compared to sort of year over year? What were some of the real key factors that jumped out to at you with regards to why people are feeling this way?
I think you look at the province right now, the economy is really starting to go. We were hurting as a province there for quite a number of years, pre-COVID, during COVID, and we've been seeing them slowly start to, increase. But in this last little bit, it's really started to spike, and particularly amongst those that are feeling very optimistic about the long-term future. That took a 10-point jump, which is very significant.
Yeah. So, hey, John, we'll want to put some stats up on screen here so you can see this, because you've got confidence levels among business, and then you've got confidence levels among the general public, and it looks to me numbers wise like the entrepreneurs and the people doing business are even more bullish than the general public. What does that tell you?
Well, I think that the investment community, the business community, they're really focused on numbers and outlook, because that matters so much to the important, how they're running their business. And so they might have their finger on the pulse a little bit more about some of the metrics or fundamentals that would support confidence levels amongst business investors and employers. And it's looking really, really good right now. But we do see the public is certainly tracking along that way as well. Amongst those in the public that are feeling very confident about the future, that's its highest that it's ever been as well.
The conversation with you is coming at a perfect time as Canadians and in particular Albertans saw the province end its fiscal year with more than a $4 billion surplus. And you had asked Albertans as part of this survey what they'd like to see surplus dollars spent on, or essentially where they'd like to see expenditures go. Anything surprise you in the results that returned?
Yeah, well, we've seen some pretty kind of consistent in the top two priorities around, paying down debt is still a huge priority for both business and public, and investing in infrastructure that's going to, support long-term economic growth and so forth. But we do see, a decline in those, both business and public, who want to see more spending of those surplus on public services. We see a lot more priority being put on reducing taxes, particularly amongst the public.
Yeah, right. I was kind of curious to see that the more business owners, as compared to members of the general public, would like to see savings prioritized. In particular, the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. There's about a 9-point spread there, which is pretty significant. But there's an 11-point spread in the other direction when it comes to reducing taxes. The general public would really like to see taxes reduced. I hear that, though, from businesses all the time. They want to see taxes reduced. Are you a little surprised that that's maybe not a top priority for the entrepreneurs?
You know, you could take it either way. It could be surprising. I mean, the province has put in some pretty tough fiscal measures for themselves and their own discipline over the past couple of years, which I think really has contributed to that strong balance sheet that was just reported on, as well as recent increases in our credit rating as a province. But I think that the business is also thinking a little bit longer term right there. Right now, we also did a lot of research, and just so everyone knows, you guys are getting a sneak peek. We haven't released this report. It's
we
not
appreciate
coming,
that,
yes,
by the way.
It's coming out next week. But we did a lot digging into inflation, and the public is really still feeling the pain of inflation. And I think that might be reflected in their desire to see, reduction of costs that they're bearing in other means like taxes.
I had this circled on my list, and I wanted to ask you about this. The Alberta Chambers of Commerce, it was about just under a month ago, about 3 weeks ago, you and the team had wrote a letter to the Standing Senate Committee on National Finance. And if we get into the weeds and into the details on this, people are going to get bored, but there's nothing boring about the premise of this. Right? This has to do with businesses, with environmental claims or environmental action, with lobby on the government, and essentially some businesses probably concerned that they're going to get lopped off at the knees here. Can you dumb this down for us, or at least put it into layperson's terms on exactly what the issue is and what the position that Alberta Chambers is taking on this?
Yeah, so the issue is there's been a lot of legislative changes federally, and a number of them through what's called Bill C-59, and it's the Competition Act. The Competition Act has been around for a very, very long time in Canada, and so this was amendments to the Competition Act. And what it did is it puts a increased onus on businesses to report their environmental performance. In particular, it's actually quite broad, but in particular, this was singled out as a key theme of these amendments, was to be more accurate or accountable to the type of environmental performance metrics that they're communicating out to the public. So that was one big point of it. The other point is it changed some of the process with which people could bring complaints forward to the competition tribunal, and that is cause for some concern that we certainly expressed in that letter.
So what kind of businesses are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, the Competition Act applies to everybody.
Could be anybody, but these are the big producers,
yeah,
right?
These are really around our
energy
resource
producers,
industry.
yeah.
This is about our resource industry, and at the end of the day, the resource industry drives Alberta and all of Canada's economy. It is the heartbeat of the Canadian economy.
So for the average civilian that looks at this and says, hang on a second, though, environmental standards, environmental reporting, environmental transparency or transparency in this context, that's a good thing, right? Don't we want this? What would you say to them?
Absolutely. And I think that you've seen business respond to that. And, in the past number of years in particular, you've seen a tremendous amount of investment by business to be more transparent, to communicate the benefits of what they're doing in terms that other people might understand. It's not always just dollars and cents. It's also, hey, this is how we are investing in reducing environmental impacts, how we're solving problems, taking one thing off the board over here, maybe it costs a little bit over here, but on the aggregate, we're making a better, more environmentally friendly environment, and just protecting the environment that we all live in. And business wants to communicate those stories. Unfortunately, these amendments are creating a lot of uncertainty about how they need to report that, the accountability in reporting that, and it brings some more stringent penalties to the table if they're found not reporting that accurately. And that's creating a lot of uncertainty for business. And you're seeing businesses now respond by taking information that they've been communicating previously publicly, online, on websites. They're taking that down out of the public realm, and that's unfortunate.
Do you think that this is, I'm going to put you on the spot with something, do you think that this is exactly what was happening? This is I'm asking you to speculate. Do you think that this is what you saw that story a couple of weeks ago? Pathways Alliance, and we've talked about Pathways Alliance on the show, had removed some content from its website. I'm asking you to speculate, but I wonder if that might be related to this.
You know what? That's the prevailing speculation. I'll put it that way. I think that makes a lot of sense. That companies are just concerned. They don't understand exactly what these new rules mean. in particular, the standards for which they'll be held to account in terms of that reporting are quite uncertain and ambiguous. They're very complex global standards, but none of those, there's no formula for reporting those accurately. And so businesses are just very concerned about the uncertainty around that. And so they're just taking, risk mitigating measures.
Yeah. Well, talking about this shortage of skilled workers, we've heard about a lot in different industries, in particular industries where we know that it's in the general public's interest for there to be hiring up. I'm talking about like healthcare, professions, as an example, nurses and doctors, certainly top priority. And we're seeing competition for that skilled labor internationally. I can think of engineers, professional engineers as well. And so I was particularly interested to see Shauna Feth's name, the CEO of Alberta Chambers of Commerce, named to this Foreign Credential Recognition Advisory Committee with some other familiar names as well. Jay Najendran, we've talked to Jay before, the CEO of APAGA. Professional engineers and geoscientists. I saw Cam Linke on there from AMI. Cam, obviously, a very well known in the AI space in the province of Alberta. But there's Shauna as well. Give us a sense of what this 13-member community's mandate is, and ultimately what I know you don't want to get ahead of this too far, but what an ideal outcome might be.
I think an ideal outcome is just going to be that individuals who come from outside of Canada who've been well trained are able to get into jobs faster.
Yeah.
That's the nuts and bolts of it. It's, there's a lot of, potentially barriers for individuals that have been well trained outside of Canada or outside of Alberta, and they come here with hopes and dreams to contribute and pursue those professional careers and so forth, and build lives for themselves. And sometimes there's a lot of friction in getting those credentials recognized, and that's what this advisory committee is focused on addressing.
So you got to sort of find a way to find that balance of addressing skilled labor shortages in Canada and providing great opportunity for skilled, educated, and experienced new Canadians, while at the same time protecting, obviously, the integrity of these professional designations in the province and across the country as well. And I think that goes without saying. In particular, when you're talking about things like people that are going to be, doing heart surgeries and building bridges, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt this is the three legs of that stool, and they're all really, really important. We emphasize a lot, just generally as a ACC in our policy and the initiatives that we run, a lot around skills and the importance of hands-on learning. It's a great way to, when you have an opportunity to both learn hands-on and demonstrate skills hands-on, it's a great way of validating the kind of skills that people have. And so I know that's going to be part of this conversation is where individuals who may have been trained elsewhere, when they come here, the ways that they can validate that they can actually do the things that they say that they can do, or that their credential has trained them for.
It's cool to see Alberta Chambers on that list. I'll let the listening audience know, just of interest, some of the other groups that will be represented there. Alberta Federation of Regulated Health Professionals, Alberta Veterinary Medical Association, which is kind of an interesting story that's been flying under the radar. We've been hearing from some veterinarians that have been emailing into the show saying, you're not mentioning our profession in this, but it's a very real challenge for us as well.
And I would say for industry, it's a big deal here in the province.
Huge.
I mean, that veterinarian gap right now is really critical.
Are you talking in particular about people in ag and producers and that along those lines? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Alberta Ag is on this panel as well, the Calgary Region Immigrant Employment Council, National Nursing Assessment Service. So that's great, and it's good to see Alberta Chambers there. Before we go, you have now launched, it's open until July 26th, correct? So people have a couple of weeks, but why wait? Why not do it now? The hiring intentions survey. People can learn more at albertaperspectives.ca. We'll obviously pop it into the show notes for the podcast and on YouTube. What are you trying to find out with this one?
Well, you know what, we've been doing these surveys on a quarterly basis, and they're really critical for tracking where businesses' needs are, where there's opportunities, gaps, or challenges they're facing. This kind of data feeds into these discussions like the Foreign Credential Advisory Committee is going to have. It really informs policy discussions, and it gives a good lens for businesses to see where other business leaders are on these issues, what kind of gaps that they might be having or barriers. Also, some of the solutions that they're applying successfully, and we like to communicate that out so that businesses can learn from each other.
All right, good stuff. And anyone can participate in this, correct?
We would love business people.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you have an interest in business, a vested interest, I mean, if this is your lifeblood, if this is your passion, this is an amazing way to have your voice heard, right? And to have your perspective shared.
Absolutely. This has a huge amount of credibility with a lot of stakeholders, and so this is a great way to make your priorities known.
I love it. You can learn more about what the Alberta Chambers of Commerce team is doing, how that advocacy is happening, and how community to them is everything. A healthy community means healthy business conditions, all the details on becoming a member at abchamber.ca. That's where we find Jason Leslie, who has his eye on Alberta business for the month of July. Thanks for doing this, man. It's good to see you again.
Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, you bet. Talk at RyanJesperson.com is where you can send us feedback on anything you've heard. You want to stick around for Positive Reflections? We got a great story coming up. I think you're going to like this one, Jay. This is super cool. Before we get there, I want to remind you that Athabasca University is Canada's open university, and of all this talk about business and industry, professional certification, career opportunities is lighting a fire in your belly. You're getting excited. You're inspired. Why not take 2 minutes today to check out athabascau.ca, where world-class accredited online degrees and courses are designed so you can complete your education whenever and wherever it works for you, and the numbers don't lie. Look at this. You want to talk about return on investment? More than 94% of AU alumni say they're satisfied with the quality of their education. More than 92% of them say they're in a job related to their field of study. Not every post-secondary can make that claim. You'll find more details on the AU Advantage by visiting athabascau.ca. And a shout out to our friends at Complete Care Restoration, steadfast supporters of Real Talk and more than a quarter century of experience restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. Whether it's Canadians impacted by wildfire, by flooding, whether it's individuals that are discovering black mold or asbestos in a property, you want to leave that stuff to the certified and trained professionals. Complete Care Restoration is ready to respond 24/7 across the province, and you can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. Well, we wrap up every Monday here on the show, courtesy of our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. And Johnny, I haven't even showed you this yet. I'm excited to show you this story.
I'm excited too.
I had never heard of this before, but let me get to it. We call this Positive Reflections, right? This is a way to step outside the news cycle for a second and to focus on something or somebody that's doing something different, something remarkable. And that is exactly, and we want to give a shout out to Alexandra, who sent this in, submitted it to talk at RyanJesperson.com. She said, have you ever heard about the Hartman family from Texas? And we had not. And she sent us a link to this story. Gordon Hartman is the entrepreneur. He is a home builder, right? He's just a beloved daughter, Morgan. And Morgan is living with some disabilities. And the Hartman family really wanted to do something, not just to make Morgan's life more full of joy, more full of opportunity, but the lives of countless people living with disabilities. And so the Hartmans sold their construction business for more than $50 million and invested it in a theme park, in particular for their daughter Morgan, but hundreds of people are benefiting from this park. Gordon, Dad, says he got the idea after seeing Morgan struggle to fit in during a family vacation elsewhere. She was trying to join other kids at a pool, but the kids didn't know how to interact with Morgan with her disability, and so they couldn't find an inclusive vacation spot. They saw an opportunity, and they decided to create one themselves. Now we have Morgan's Wonderland, a place for everyone, no matter their abilities, where they can play together. They built the park on a 25-acre site just outside San Antonio, Texas. They employ doctors and therapists, and they welcome families from all around the world. This cost $34 million US of their own money to build. How amazing is this? A fully accessible Ferris wheel, an adventure playground, a miniature train. They've got a carousel designed for wheelchair users that allow them to move up and down alongside animal figures. This park, a huge testament to Gordon Hartman's dedication to inclusivity and creating a joyful experience for all visitors. We absolutely love this. You can learn more by checking out Morgan's Wonderland on YouTube. We'll link to it in the show notes. So we're so grateful, Alexandra, that you passed this along. I've never seen anything quite like this, and I love when somebody takes something personally and they decide to make a difference. That's what this feature is all about every single week. If you see somebody making a difference in your community, we'd love to hear about the story. Send it to us like Alexandra did to talk at RyanJesperson.com. Positive Reflections, proudly presented weekly right here on Real Talk by our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. Coming up on tomorrow's show, that's July 9th, it's Tuesday. You remember when Danielle Smith was on, and then the day after we had the Danielle Smith fact check? Well, what about our conversation with Naheed Nenshi, the new leader of the Alberta NDP? He made some bold claims in that interview. If you missed it, check it out. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to fact check Nenshi. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.